Zach Winters. Welcome to the Zach Winters Show. So this is our second episode here. When we were doing the first one, we did the jack stand. We're reviewing Kurt Cobain's custom guitar that was just reissued for the 30-year anniversary of Nevermind. It reminded me of the book that I had gotten when I was younger. This is a Danny Ferrington coffee table book. So Danny Ferrington actually had made a custom guitar for Kurt Cobain back in '92. It seemed they met after the SNL performance, and he commissioned a custom Mustang. Sometimes it's confused for the jack stang. One of the main things you could tell is that on the fretboard it had these little heart inlays. Plus, it's a Mustang. It's not a jack stang. But regardless, he's actually a pretty interesting character for those that don't know about Danny Ferrington. He's a Master Luthier, and he's done some of the biggest names in rock, folk, country, some even outliers. So some of the customers here, just to give you a few, I wrote down here, I got Johnny Cash, George Harrison, Eric Clapton, of course the Kurt Cobain Mustang, and you know, some of them are actually even musicians in the traditional sense, like who you would think is a rock star or anything like that. You got Johnny Depp, even Stephen King. So I thought that was pretty cool. Stephen King's part of like a literary group, so it's other writers that get together at the conventions and play as a band. And of course he's got a Ferrington guitar as well. So I was a little shocked when trying to research this video. Danny Ferrington, while somewhat known, really doesn't have that much publicity in my opinion. He doesn't have a Wikipedia. He looks like he has a Twitter page, but it hasn't been updated since 2018. I'm not sure, if that means, something happened, if he's sick or anything like that. I'm not wishing any ill, obviously, but it was tough to get information outside of the book here. But there was some resources, and I just wanted to go over it. I think he's got a pretty interesting story, and he's definitely got some interesting stories with people he's worked with. So that's what we're going to do today. And before we get into it, we're obviously a very small channel. We just started. Like I said, this is our second video. And I just want to ask that if you like what you've seen so far, if you could hit the subscribe, like, and that way we can get in the algorithm. And we hope to provide more and more quality content as we go along. I know it's been a little rough around the edges. This is not something that I've been trained to do. Definitely an amateur, but I hope you get better. And if you have any suggestions, I'm definitely open to it. And thanks for watching. So without further ado. So of course, for some guitar people, the Ferrington name may come into mind when you think of the Kramer Ferrington guitars. But for our purposes, we're not going to go into those. I know they can be pretty dividing. Some think they're some of the worst production guitars out there. What we're going to stick with is customs. Alright, so Ferrington here in the book, it shows that in 1975 he moved from Louisiana to Nashville, and that's where he got his start, working on at the old-time Pickin' Parlor with the famed acoustic guitar maker Randy Wood. So it looks like that's really where his start was, not in electrics but acoustics. And you can see it actually with some of his stuff that he tries to emulate a violin. Or some of the orchestra type string instruments, which I thought was really cool. We'll get into that later.
Take the Elvis Costello guitar, for instance. It says here, first met Elvis when living in Nashville, back when everyone still thought of him as an angry young man. Elvis was playing a gig in town, and a friend of mine helped me get backstage to meet him. I went back there, armed with a few guitars and some slides of others, and the two of us just had a good time together. I was kind of surprised at what a nice guy he turned out to be. Just clicked right off the bat. I didn't talk with him again until a few years later, when I was living in Los Angeles. Elvis had seen a small guitar I'd built for Nick Lowe, and he called from London one day to order one for himself. So you just see here that he casually went there, he's having a good time, and a couple years later, he now has a custom guitar order from a well-known artist. So with the Pete Townsend guitar, this acoustic guitar you can see, you also get another one of those stories where he's just hungry, he's going out there, this is the beginning of his career. So he says, in 1980, Pete's guitar tech, Alan Rogan, helped me get backstage to see The Who. I carried a few of the small guitars over to the Boston Garden, but Pete was still in his hotel, so I just left them in his dressing room. So imagine that, you got all these guitars, they're, your labor, you're not really well known, and you just leave, which got to be a couple $100 in the 80s worth of equipment and time and, labor of love, in the hopes that this famous musician will place an order. I would imagine there was some debauchery back there, people drinking and partying, and he took a chance. So I mean, it's pretty cool to me, at least, that he had that go get 'em attitude. Anyhow, so he says that he didn't really even meet him until years later, but the guy did that night order 2 guitars, one for him and one for the keyboard player. And down to the wood to use, how he exactly wanted it. And you can see on here that it looks like it's a pretty small guitar. I believe it says it's 3/4 the size. The book gives a pretty cool anecdote about when Kurt picked up the guitar for Kurt Cobain. So the guitar turned out real well, he says. And then just after he started playing it, he stopped dead in his tracks and said, "This is like my dream guitar." His wife asked, "Honey, are you gonna trash this one too?" But Kurt got this horrified look on his face, and in a solemn voice he said, "No, this one's gonna be my recording guitar." And I was tickled to death, and it was incredibly satisfying to hear that I'd hit the nail right on the head. The next thing we got here is Anthony Michael from Van Halen. He played bass for them throughout all the way up until the 2000s. So you can see on here, this is an acoustic bass. Oh, it was pretty cool. It looks like he wanted one of those things that looked like the old hot rods back from the 50s. Also, you can see that the control knobs are up on the top. That's something interesting I've never really seen before. Kind of wonder if he ever rests his arm on that. The other thing he has on here that's a little unique is you have an electric style and an acoustic style pickup. On this one, he also talks about how he built his very first acoustic bass, and he talks about just bringing it around town to show anyone that he could put it in front of to get their opinions. And then somehow it made its way in front of Michael Anthony, and that's how this order came about. It was evidently used and played on Big Bad Bill and Sweet William now off Van Halen's Diver Down album. Spends a good deal of time talking about the Cash family, the Carter Cash family, I should say. So you got June Carter and Johnny Cash. He's also did the daughters. So he's got Carlene Carter. Her acoustic guitar kind of stands out to me a little bit. It's this like maroon looking, which you can see here. Also has the heart inlays on the fretboard, and then it's got her name over here on the 12th. Actually, I guess that's the 16th fret. That says Carlene here. He put it in a special order fake snow leopard fur lining. This was so that it practically jumps out, the contrast between the two. Carlene's guitar was made in the 80s. And he talks about how Carlene, outside of the rest of the family, gravitated to rock and roll. So the bright red guitars that she was playing were in contrast, making her like the black sheep of the family. Thought it was kind of funny for her father being the man that dresses in black, and she's the rock and roll one. It's pretty cool. So on this purple prototype, it kind of reminds me of the new Fender Acoustic Sonic Telecasters. It's where he tried to create a acoustic guitar that you could play more like, you could play heavier and faster. So, he was talking about musicians will try to compensate by putting electric strings on an acoustic guitar, but the sound ends up being so soft that it's sometimes hard to hear what's being played. So I thought I'd try using a very light bracing pattern across the top of the acoustic guitar so the instrument would have a regular acoustic presence even though strings were electric guitar strings. So hey, yep, this is the end of the video, and this book has a lot more artists in here. There's probably close to like 30 or 40 artists, but many of them are just like studio musicians or guitarists that are before my time. I never really intended on covering them,
But like I said, while researching this video, I went to a lot of guitar forums and like comment boards, and there's a lot of people on there saying that they had reached out to Danny, you know, in the late 2010s to see if he could make a custom guitar, and it sounded like he, you know, turned him down and he wasn't looking to do that. So I don't know if it's a case of like maybe, you know, what the kids would call a clout chaser today, because he does like all these famous musicians, and it didn't seem like he wanted to make anything for, you know, your average Joe Sixpack guitar player, you know. But he also, while he was on Twitter and Facebook and everything, he just dropped off. You know, no word, no nothing. So it was tough to get any more research on him in that way. But anyhow, I think his guitars are pretty cool. I'd love to get my hands on one day. They do pop up on Reverb from time to time, but I haven't seen anything recent. The last one I saw was, you know, $2,000 or $3,000. There's also some, you know, people that on the guitar forum that showed that they had found one in a Goodwill store for $14. I guess the store didn't know what they had. And Danny Ferrington actually confirmed that it was his guitar. It had this really cool paint on it that was cross, and I guess a lot of the comments were that it was gaudy. I thought it was pretty cool. Danny liked it, but he did confirm it's not something that he painted. So, you know, the question is, who owned that guitar before, and how did it end up in Goodwill for $14? Definitely a lucky find. Outside of that, I want to thank Marty, the guitar music. I'm sure you know who he is if you're watching this channel. He does some really cool guitar lessons on YouTube. He allowed me to use that footage in there, you know, just for the B-roll. Definitely love his videos, so check them out. I'll put a link in the description. Also, I'll put a link to anything I've referred here, so all my sources. And again, we're new, so please, if you can like, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that bell. You know, we definitely want to come out with some different videos in the future. I'm going to be working on something that's closer to art next rather than music. And we'll kind of flip-flop in the subject matter like that. I think the next video is going to be pretty cool. I'm pairing up with my brother, who also, by the way, we do a horror channel. We just started that. It's going to be like in the vein of reading horror stories. The first one we acted it out, but it's going to be more you know, still images with the scary stories that we write and dictate, and we're trying to do everything ourselves on that. So that's Winter Brothers Productions. I'll put a link in the description on that as well. Alright, so we're going to try to do weekly uploads. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. We really do appreciate it.